This podcast contains spoilers, so listen at your own risk or call back after you've watched the movie.
You know who you call. Leave a message. Maybe they'll call you back. Then again, maybe they won't.
We're having ourselves quite a little game of phone tag here.
Ring, ring, ring. I usually get this guy's answering machine.
I'll call you right back.
If you're there, please pick up the phone. I really want to talk to you.
I check my fucking messages every day when I come home from work. My answering machine, zero. I got a blinking light.
All I have to do is pick up this phone right here, inform the cinema, and your plan's kaput.
No, I ain't got no phone. I had to pull, because people calling all the time, and who needs the aggravation, right? Interruptions.
Hey man, what is it? 20 to 11 on a Sunday evening, Sunday night. Everyone else has gone to bed now, so just shooting over a quick voice message before I hit the hay myself and then launch into the new week. Watched Longlegs tonight, which is a movie that I guess it came out last year. I remember early buzz surrounding it. I remember being aware of it prior to its release and kind of avoiding it. Not avoiding the movie, but like avoiding kind of hearing much about it because it was getting buzz within the horror community, and I wanted to include it in Spooktober, which is when I watch a horror film every day throughout October. But it was too late to include it in last year's Spooktober because I'd already locked the movies for that one. So it's kind of rolled around, and despite being one of the most talked about and I guess popular films, horror films of last year, I'm now catching up with it probably about a year and a half after it came out. I had avoided for ages. I had avoided everything, like literally didn't know a single thing about it. Eventually, it was revealed to me that Nicolas Cage is in the movie. You do find that out in like the opening 2 minutes, but it would still have been a nice surprise to. I think it was omitted from the marketing of the movie, so it's not like a certain actor popping up in Seven, where it's not even in the opening credits, if I remember correctly. This is like, Nick Cage is mentioned in the opening credits, but I did know he was in it. And also, I think I had learned that it was like an FBI, sort of Silence of the Lambs type procedural investigation, serial killer type thing. But again, that information is given to you like right from the get-go. So, yeah, went into this relatively blind beyond those two things, which, as I said, like kind of pop up, straight away. And had an interesting time with it. I watched it with my wife. I love a serial killer movie. I love a FBI profiler investigation movie. Now, this one, I guess the things that I love about that are kind of absent from this movie because there isn't really any investigating. It's revealed very early in the movie that Micah Monroe's character is a psychic, or at least has some sort of psychic capabilities. I mean, nothing in this movie is really clarified. Does she actually have psychic capabilities, or does she just have? Well, no. I was going to say, does she just have psychic capabilities related to this case? Because ultimately, it's revealed that she's very involved. But no, because the first guy that she finds in her first day on the job isn't part of the Longlegs, world or whatever. So I guess she is somewhat psychic. Very little is made of that, to be frank. And she spends the rest of the movie more or less just as like a brilliant detective more than like a psychic. I thought it was going to be, I was like, okay, here we go. So it's going to be Silence of the Lambs. It's going to be like your sort of standard FBI serial killer investigation thing, except the protagonist is kind of psychic. And it's going to be like mostly grounded in reality, but that's the thing that like is a quirk of this movie. No, the movie couldn't be less grounded in reality. I mean, it could be less grounded in reality. It could be like you could be watching like I don't know, Pee-wee's Big Adventure or something. But other than the fact that it looks very much like a True Detective or something like that visually, the actual content of what you see just gets wilder and wilder and wilder, and by the end of it, it's yeah, there isn't really anything left of the likes of Mindhunter in this movie in terms of like the plot. But the kind of visual texture of it is very much that FBI serial killer type movie, which is something I'm a big fan of. I had seen one film by, is it Osgood Perkins, that his name? Only learned tonight after watching this movie that he's the son of Anthony Perkins, which is pretty cool lineage there for like, going from one horror icon to like a new contemporary horror icon. I'd seen Gretel and Hansel, which I think is the movie he made directly before Longlegs, and I didn't think much of it, but here's a curious little thing. So Gretel and Hansel is one of the best looking movies of the last 10 years, I'd say. It's like incredibly well shot. And it was shot by a first-time first-time cinematographer for a feature film. So it was his first feature film, and he was a Latino cinematographer. He's gone on to make Alien Romulus and other things. I think that's his most significant movie since then. But Gretel and Hansel, sort of throwaway, inconsequential, nothingy movie, in my opinion. But if you're just looking for like the best cinematography out there, it's like must see. So he's unearthed this like, really not famous Latino cinematographer and done incredible work. And then I'm watching Longlegs and I'm like, this is one of the best looking movies I've seen in a very long time. This is like incredibly well shot. It's so good. And I'm like, it must be the same guy. Like that, he did, even though they look very, very different, the two movies. I was like, okay, that guy's just like good enough to fully adapt and change his style up for this movie. Then I find out, no, Longlegs is shot again by a first-time Latino cinematographer who's done no other movies before, has done other like shorts and stuff, but that's 2 for 2. I mean, Osgood Perkins has made various other movies that I haven't seen, 1 or 2 of which I'm somewhat interested in seeing. But both movies I've seen are like ridiculously good-looking movies that are first-time cinematographers. So I don't know what's going on there, but that's the best thing about both movies, I would say. I preferred this to Gretel and Hansel. It's kind of a case of it's got a good few things I like in it. I generally like Micah Monroe as a scream queen presence in horror movies. I think, as I said, it looks absolutely amazing. I'm a huge fan of Nicolas Cage. Now, it's debatable whether he's if this movie wasn't so crazy and like ultimately is about like, oh, he's a doll maker who makes like a satanic doll thing that has a orb in its head that can possess the family into doing Satan's bidding, right? Like if it didn't eventually become just like complete insanity, then I think he would be sort of miscast because he's so big and he's so Nicolas Cage, and I think maybe a more understated, chilling actor would be better. But although Nick is sort of the first thing to fully crazy up the movie in that scene where he's like driving around in the car screaming, ultimately the movie's just crazy all over the shop. So at that point I'm like, yeah, why not put Nick in there? He curiously looked very like Mickey Rourke. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but obviously he's wearing some sort of like prosthetics on his face, and it's a very crazy, almost like Marilyn Manson looking aesthetic. I didn't make the connection to porcelain dolls when I was watching it, but my wife did, and she mentioned it afterwards, like, oh yeah, okay, so that, I guess, there's at least some maybe logic that you can draw to why he looks the way he looks. He does mention white a lot, and the white houses got whiter and whiter, and there's something going on there. But he looks crazy. Also a little bit reminiscent of a movie from around the same time, The Black Phone, with Ethan Hawke. Now, it's not fully the same thing, but it's both kind of actors of that generation sort of converting themselves into like ghoulish figures with these really big performances. And yeah, it's creepy. I mean, it's kind of your classic thing of like, the more you show of the monster, the less compelling it is. That opening scene, which we eventually learn is a flashback to Mike Monroe as a kid, when you only see him from sort of the chin down, and then as soon as he hunches down, it cuts to credits. So you're really getting like the bit, just barely getting a glimpse of him. That's probably when it looks the scariest that it's going to look. Also like it in the sort of VHS interrogation video that they show in the FBI office. And I love the bit where the mother comes over and goes, "Who the fuck are you? Like, why are you talking to my kid?" And he starts like putting his hands up in these weird positions, and he does his little poem about, if you let me in quick, then it will go nice, but you know, all that stuff. Again, this movie has like a bunch of things I like in it, like enough things I like, and also the kind of surface sheen of the movie is that it's stunning to look at, and it's like an FBI investigation thing. So it's an easy movie for me to watch, an easy movie for me to like be fairly engaged with and enjoy to an extent. And then there's just certain things that I really like, but I felt like I really wanted more out of it. I wanted more plot, more cohesion, more like when it eventually devolves into like Blair Underwood's family is the next family being targeted, and Micah Monroe's mother is at the core of the whole thing, and it's just it's a fairy tale eventually. And I don't know, I guess the movie managed from an early point to get me leaning in, focusing on details, really trying to like I was ready for something like a Zodiac or something like that. Not that I thought it was going to be like on that level, but I had that hat on, I had that level of engagement on. And when you eventually get just sort of like a bananas horror movie, or like kind of like, you know, satanic kind of demonic possession type thing, I was like, okay. I thought this was going to be a bit more complex. Like even like a movie we watched recently, Weapons, which you could say is like eventually gets down to something quite simple. It's at least got a bunch of different things going on, so you're paying attention and the plot is interesting. But this one, yeah, I felt like it doesn't really reward paying close attention on like a plot level. And I'm not a big Satan guy, to be honest. Like, I think Satan being the ultimate antagonist in movies is fine. It's a bit played out. Like it's almost like as soon as you involve Satan, it's like, all right, okay, Satan, all right, okay. Like it's that you've dispelled the mystery. It's not like more mysterious because it's like the unknowableness of Satan and pure evil. It's like, oh right, okay, yeah, the you know, this old cat again. So I don't know. It was a mixed bag for me, but really, really nice to look at. I guess I'll check out more Osgood stuff. There were some interesting things about Nicolas Cage's character where like you've got Lou Reed, and I think I saw Robert Smith and various other kind of like 70s and 80s pop icon, like kind of glam pop um icons throughout the movie that are part of his world, and his little kind of like den with like tie-dyed wall hangings and stuff like that. They yeah, build a lot of strong visuals. Her fucking house in the middle of the like middle of the fucking forest, like the fucking scariest environment ever, to just live in as a single woman. Like, it's crazy. And like when she goes outside, like she looks out and she sees like what looks like the silhouette of a person, but could also, I guess, be the doll. And she goes outside and then she looks back over her shoulder and she sees him, like that classic Nicolas Cage hunched shuffle, just strolling through the house. It's got the Zodiac Code stuff, which is always good. And yeah, a lot of ingredients, a lot of like breadcrumbs drawing me into the movie and making me more invested in it. And then just nothing too satisfying left at the core of it. But yeah, I think people have liked it a fair bit. So I kind of doubt that you'll like it more than me because I tend to like horror more than you. But at the same time, it is horror, definitely, because it's like got Satanism and it's got like the possession of the family and all that. Kind of reminded me a bit of Cure. Have you seen Cure? Japanese movie. There is something that I like that certain movies have about like a malevolent force can get into your family home and it can like ruin everything. And that's, you know, very literally displayed in this movie of like a demon doll thing. But it also just it strikes a chord because we all are aware of like things like mental health issues or, you know, a bad association with someone or, you know, just bad thing. Like a family home is so safe and lovely and so kind of, yeah, just such a, like a nice little cocoon. Horror movies that go some force, and Weapons I guess does this as well, which some force can come into the home and it can just poison the chalice, and then it's just like it's everything's fucked up from there. And that being more ethereal than just like a slasher baddie coming in with a knife and killing everyone, like that's strong. So yeah, I guess I'm waffling here, but be interested to see what you think of it and maybe what you knew about it going in. Yeah, let me know what you think.
Hey man, just got to Longlegs there a minute ago. You asked me how I came to this movie. So I think it was last year, the year before, probably 2024, looking at the date that you've give this chat for Longlegs. And I heard about the massive hype. I'm a big Nicolas Cage fan. And I was going to watch this movie there and then. And my partner wanted to watch it too. Of course, I've now watched it without her, actually. I just realized. So I held off on it a bit. And then you said, oh, you should try and hold off on some of these movies until Spooktober, like Smile 2, Longlegs. I think, can't remember if History of Violence was part of that conversation of not. Oh no, it's not History of Violence. I can't remember what it's called. The one from the serial killer's point of view. But yeah, so in between that time, your average horror man on the street or horror woman on the street, who they wouldn't be horror nuts in the way you are, they'd be Marvel fans cinema fans in the way a Marvel fan would be. You know, they're there for their they like Marvel movies and they're not necessarily exploring every other avenue of movie, but they are there for their Marvel or like anime fans. I've talked to people who are horror fans in that way, where they're not really going to the cinema every day. For instance, I said I saw one battle after another to a few of them, and they said, "Oh well, I've got no interest in that movie." But if you say a horror movie, then they're like, they've seen it. And I'm not talking about your deep cuts. I'm just talking about any horror that comes to the cinema. So your average horror man and woman on the street that I spoke to give me very uninspired feedback for this movie. So it dampened my expectations. And then I put it off to this very moment. So yeah, I kind of, this is the type of movie that I see and I'll just never think about it again, and probably wouldn't have talked about it without responding to your thoughts and hearing your thoughts in the voice note. Not that there's necessarily nothing to talk about, because there is, but just it wouldn't compel me to even give it a star rating on Letterboxd. That's how meh I thought about this movie, and it's not bad movie. I don't think it's particularly a good movie. It's almost worse, where you don't have a strong reaction either way, but certainly didn't bowl me over. It's a type of movie on paper, if you're just giving me a little bit of a pep talk of what's in the movie, has everything I like. I like serial killer movies. I love Nicolas Cage. Yeah, it's got those type of things going for it. And initially, to begin with, I thought it was being framed in terms of a serial killer hunt for something supernatural. You're probably going to feel very different with me regarding my following thoughts, but I feel like this movie is what it's like when this is your brain on movies. It's when someone's seen a lot of movies but doesn't have a lot of creativity on the one hand. So, I mean, you mentioned that it's an amazing to look at movie. I don't disagree. I just didn't feel that when I was watching it. And part of the reason is, and that's not to say it's shoddy. It's fine. It's fine. It didn't stand out to me. And probably one of the reasons why it didn't stand out to me is because it is filled with just not only things I've seen over the last few years, but things I've seen over the last month. I mean, we watched Strange Darlings. This movie almost starts very similar with the Roman numerals, the throwback to that 70s aesthetic, part one, and even some of the things that happen in this movie, the effects that are used, where there's one where Longlegs bangs his head off the table and then his face disappears in the exact same way, the exact same effect palette that was in Smile 2. So I'm not saying that this movie is not everything you say in terms of how it's shot by any means. I'm just saying I didn't notice it because there was so many other things to draw my attention away from how it looks that I've seen recycled in the mise-en-scene, shall we say, that would just not make me think that. I could be the very same person that if you're shooting beautiful Minnesota, Montana skylines and rustic towns, I might be jumping out the chair just in the same way you are. So I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm just not echoing what you're saying from my experience. And yeah, this movie, it almost has a coat of paint that almost flatters to deceive. And it's weird. I don't know. I don't read productions of movies, but it's almost like they had nothing, and then they got in a conversation with Nicolas Cage, and he said, "Oh, do you know what I want to do? I want to dress up in prosthetics and makeup and be this loony satanic killer. Do you guys want to do that?" And then everyone's like, "Yeah, great, great." And then they work back because everything else is such window dressing, and really doesn't amount to anything, in my opinion. Anyway, the serial killer thing, that's just something you've taken from someone else. The aesthetic of Silence of the Lambs, the aesthetic of Seven, you're not really interested in it in the way those movies are. You've just seen that movie. And you mentioned movies like Weapons, movies like Black Phone, just every ingredient that's put into this movie, other than Nicolas Cage, just seems like, oh, right, you saw that movie. All right, you saw a movie where they did a grindhouse little intro. Oh, you've seen that? Oh, you've seen that, huh? And it's just how many more times do I have to see that type of thing now? And I'm not just talking about in relation to horror. It just seems to be a this is your brain on movies phenomenon now, and I'm getting a bit bored of it. But I think, what's her name? Maika Monroe. I think she's really good in it as a scream queen or whatever, as a whatever the word is, because she's not really screaming in this movie, but she's very good. I really like her in It Follows. I really like her in this. Now, as an FBI agent, she's very shoddy and unbelievable, but the movie does circumnavigate that in the way that everyone believes that these things exist without any convincing, to an extent, which I appreciated, rather than having to put in the whole trope of, oh, we don't believe you. Everyone's pretty much on board on this. It's almost like a subdivision of the X-Files without being anything got to do with the X-Files. It's fine that she's a psychic. It's fine that they do this test. Everyone's fine with all this stuff that's banded about, which I appreciate, because I didn't really want any scenes of characters trying to be convinced. Everyone just is told something. For the most part, they're along for the ride, and that's good. The whole satanic thing is just fluff. I don't think it's scary. I don't think it's creepy. I think even the investigation side of things is very bland. The mystery is very bland. I agree with you about the house in the middle of nowhere. What's her name? Alicia Witt is quite good in this as well. Her house is the set design on that, and just the location, and the fact that everything is in bags and there's not much light in the house. That's great. You've mentioned that for a single woman to live there is nuts. Well, it's probably more dangerous to live in the city as a single woman, actually, but I get what you mean. And you keep on mentioning this movie is bananas, and it gets more and more bananas, so Nicolas Cage is fine. I mean, it's bananas in the sense that my normal life would find that bananas. In terms of every horror movie and every kind of trope that can be thrown at the table, it's pretty standard to me. I don't know. The dolls, Satan, scripts, all these codes and everything. It's pretty standard, really. I didn't find anything bananas. Whereas something like Barbarian, I found bananas. And this movie was just like, okay, it felt very mass produced, with the exception of Nicolas Cage thrown in. And I guess this is where it will come down to. So for me, I love Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage. I think he's a brilliant actor. And I do mean that wholeheartedly. I think he always finds a different angle to play a role. He always finds a way to convey emotions in his Nicolas Cage way that both seem outlandish and both seem like a person would do that in real life, but he's also a movie star. So it's like a cocktail of different types of acting happening at the same time. So I love Nicolas Cage, and he's still brilliant given the right role. I think I've seen him in, what was that movie the other day? Is it called The Surfer? Brilliant performance. Brilliant performance. In this, I think it is so distracting. It's almost like Nicolas Cage's White Chicks performance, both with the makeup and his mannerisms and how he fits into this movie. Now, if you're finding this scary and if you're finding this creepy, then all that is out the window and you're having a great time. And maybe then everything I said about this movie is null and void. Maybe all the bland elements tied around this type of guy and the uniqueness of Nicolas Cage finding a way to creep you out makes this movie come together. For me, it's White Chicks Cage, and I found his mannerisms, I found his voice, I found his movement so distracting because we can't see his face and the makeup's really bad. I mean, you're talking about porcelain dolls that your wife said, maybe that's a good point, but it still looks terrible. And I think the aesthetics of the dolls themselves are pretty bad as well. It's like something out of Squid Game or something. All these things just yeah, what are we doing here? And yeah, so not only am I not engaged with the everything, it's almost like decorations to hide the fact that it's a Christmas tree. And not only am I not engaged with any of that, but anytime this guy shows up, it's just very cringe and it's very distracting. And it's, if you just saw a random scene from that movie, you probably couldn't tell what genre it is. You might think, is this a parody? Is this a spoof? Is this a scene from Scary Movie? Some of these things are just didn't work for me. And again, if it works for you, you're getting a completely different vibe. But the early scene, the end scene of him pouting and saying something about Satan, that's just him ad-libbing, and they put it on at the end. It's just why? What else is I gonna say? Yeah, and I think the mystery of the mother and the fact that she's involved and she's the accomplice. I mean, how long it took to get to that when we really felt that was the only way this movie could go was a bit annoying as well. And you mentioned the people, the musicians and the aesthetic. One person you did mention, which is probably the most heavily featured, is Mark Bolan from T-Rex. The movie starts with a poem or a song lyric from T-Rex. It ends with a song from T-Rex. I think there's lines of dialogue that is from T-Rex songs, and I think like that was my favorite part of the movie. The way they kind of draw a weird comparison that a satanic figure could be inspired by Mark Bolan, and just I kind of buy that, but I'm also a massive fan of Mark Bolan, so maybe I just appreciated that. Oh yeah, and the other thing, what you're saying is that you didn't really know much about this movie and whatnot. Yeah, what I really didn't like as well is that the movie wants you to know that that's Nicolas Cage. There could be another. I had forgotten he was in this movie as well, but from the opening moment, they say Nicolas Cage as Longlegs. So, not to say it's a vanity project, but they want you to know that's Nicolas Cage. Like you mentioned in Seven, where certain actor shows up. They don't even want it to be a nice surprise. I don't know if they did test screenings where people were distracted by everything that Longlegs did trying to figure out who it was, and then thought, oh, that's Nicolas Cage. Maybe they're trying to cut off the laugh or cut off the, oh my God, that's Nicolas Cage. But beforehand, at one point, and obviously they leaned into it heavily in the marketing, but I wonder what the original conception of that was. And so you know it's Nicolas Cage from the beginning with Longlegs, and then it's just distracting that it is him anyway, even if you do know. So just thought that was a bad idea as well, but maybe not. Maybe it is a good idea to get that out of the way if you somehow manage to not be aware of it. So yeah, I'm just on a roll now of fine movies and then some like decent movies. Like, thank God for Suspiria, actually. And I'm not just talking about Spooktober. The Long Walk the other day and House of Diamond the other day. It's just like, come on, give me, stop, get off the conveyor belt, lads. And yeah, this is another one to be added to that. Let's see what is next.
Yeah, sounds like you had a much worse time with it than I did. I think it's a fine line sometimes between the movie didn't do enough for me or the movie did do enough for me. I mean, it's one thing when you hate a movie or when you love a movie, but most movies are going to kind of fall in the middle. And like you said, if you're on a run of movies where like, that didn't do enough for me, that didn't do enough for me, you just feel like you're coming away from movies not rewarding the time investment that you're putting into them. Whereas if they're just the right side of that, you're like, I had a decent enough time with that. It was worth watching. It was worth my time. Which Longlegs was for me, certainly. But I think one thing, because we probably feel very similarly about the plot and about, you know, the general structure and sort of concept of this movie. But I think I derived a hell of a lot of enjoyment from certain individual parts kind of in isolation. And that sort of carried me through it. As I said, I think it's like one of the best looking movies I've seen in a long time. Reminded me, actually, you remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a bunch of music video directors, Mark Romanek, Michel Gondry, Spike Jonze, a few others that kind of exploded onto the scene and started making movies, feature films. Your man who recently made Zone of Interest, he was in the mix as well, and the Daniels who made Swiss Army Man and stuff like that. That was a bit of a thing for a while. I mean, probably it still is, to be fair, but it was kind of a new thing, certainly that or a peak of it, where it's like, oh shit, these people who've been playing in this space where they can be really creative visually are now doing films, and that's a breath of fresh air. I think the generation before that, with the likes of Ridley Scott and David Fincher and stuff, was people graduating from TV commercials into film. So it's like that was similar. Like, these are very visual storytelling people. This feels like that mold of like, this is a brilliant visual storyteller. Not even visual story, but he's just brilliant at visuals. Although I don't know whether the credit sort of lies with him or the cinematographers that he's working with, but they're incredible films to look at, the two that I've seen. But there isn't really much under the surface. So if you watch a music video, sometimes it's stunning to look at, but it's not like you go, now what a story I got there, or even what a communication of like thoughts and feelings. It's just like, no, that looked really, really good to see. So because it's kind of an all style, no substance movie, at least to me and you, if you're loving the style and you're just really constantly being wowed by it and admiring it, then that's one experience with the film. But it sounds like you kind of needed a bit more underpinning to that style to like it. And also the Nick Cage thing. I mean, I really liked the Nick Cage performance. I found it really creepy. There was a couple of bits. Once per movie, Nick Cage does the big, like, shouty scene, like he does it in the car when he's driving along in Longlegs. And I usually feel like it's almost like it's in his contract. And I tend to, it breaks the immersion, it takes me out of it, but the rest of it I liked. You referenced the end scene where he goes, "Hail Satan," and he goes, "Mwah," or something. I mean, that's terrible, but also the ending of this film is just like it floated into nothingness, because when a movie has nothing, then it can't end satisfyingly, because there was actually never anything pushing forward any of the strands of the movie, anything worthwhile or anything good. And so when you get to the end, it's just like roll credits. But at the same time, I really liked both the Cage performance and the presentation of that character, even though it's really heightened. And also, to want to clarify, I said in my voice note that the movie's bananas, so Nick Cage being bananas works. You said you didn't think the movie was bananas, you think it's just par for the course in horror. I didn't mean bananas as in like, I think it was probably the wrong choice of words. I don't mean bananas as in unusual to horror. I meant things don't make any sense. She has some sort of psychic capabilities, and when she sort of tells that to her superiors, they're like, "Okay, good, cool, that's bananas." She's dealing with this serial killer who's killing girls on their like 9th birthday, or not killing the girls, but getting the family to kill everyone. And the final victim turns out to be her partner's family that she's gone over to the house of. That's bananas. I don't mean it's bananas as in like, wow, I've never seen this before. It's predictable in terms of like shitty screenwriting, but it's bananas in terms of the real world. The real world doesn't work like that, where every story just wraps up with the like 2 characters that are in orbit of it. Like she's the FBI agent investigating the case. Oh, it turns out her mother is kind of the main accomplice or whatever, and it's completely dumb, and it's really bad screenwriting, I would say. But what I mean is, because the movie, when I started watching, like, am I going to get something serious like Mindhunter, Zodiac, that kind of thing, where it's like a serious depiction of FBI profiling, details orientated, a David Simon type thing, and by the end of it, it's like, no, this is just completely unrealistic and ridiculous. And so at that point, I don't mind Nicolas Cage within this movie. Whereas if it was more of a realistic Zodiac type thing, that's when this Nicolas Cage performance would sort of take me out of it, and it would be too much. You talked about your kind of, you held off on watching the film because I had kind of asked if you could wait until I was going to watch it and then we could talk about it. And since then, you've had a lot of people say that it's underwhelming. It's interesting. So I haven't really, I think one person that I speak to about a film regularly, a coworker of mine, had seen it and mentioned it a few times, but I certainly hadn't got enough of a consensus feeling. I think when it came out, it was pretty heavily celebrated amongst horror fans. Which doesn't necessarily always tell you that much, but at least it put it on my radar. Since watching the film a week or 2 ago, whenever I saw it, I've gone back and read a bit more about the marketing of this film, and it was marketed as one of the scariest films of all time. I can't remember the exact poll quote that was on the trailer and the posters, but it's something like scariest film of the year or scariest film of all time or something like that. And it's like, it's creepy, but it wouldn't even be in the top 10,000 scariest films. I don't even feel like anyone involved in the production would remotely feel like that was even a goal of the film, to be like in the scariest films of all time. It's just about a horror film, I would say. It is a horror film because it goes into the Satanism and the dolls and all that kind of stuff, but like, I think some people will have come to this film feeling like it was going to be like incredibly scary, and then they get this film and that's probably a bit of a rough transition. But you know, Mark, like, PR is going to PR basically. I really liked the visuals, as I say. I really like the atmosphere of the movie. Like, there's a tone that's sustained, and this is probably because I ultimately think that Osgood Perkins, or whatever he's called, he's got a whole lot of nothing here, but what he does have, And this is where I'd really compliment him. And this is not necessarily just the cinematographer. This is like him as a director kind of overseeing the whole thing. And it follows through to Michael Monroe's performance. It follows through in the cinematography. It follows through like kind of to all areas of the film. He has managed to maintain a tense, dark tone. It's a very serious tone. So the atmosphere throughout the film, I thought, was quite like ominous. There's like a shroud of danger and dread that hangs over the film, and I think that would be probably the thing that would most make me watch another of his films. I think he's got a terrible script, and hopefully he stops writing his own movies, but he has proven that he can maintain an atmosphere throughout a film. And he's working with a lot of good people. Obviously, some of which, like Nicolas Cage, I enjoyed more than you in this case. But I think the film just sort of ultimately, you come away from it, you're like, oh, that was nothing. You know, it's like a non-alcoholic beer or something, where it's like you start drinking it and you're like, oh God, I got the taste, I got the whole thing. I mean, this could almost like, this is almost the same. And then you reach a point where you're like, oh, that was nothing. Not to knock none. I know a lot of people like them, but like it's that kind of, there's nothing substantial under the hood, and but there's a lot of talent on display. So yeah, I guess, like I said, I liked it a lot more than you, but I didn't like it that much. And I think Satanism now, when you find out it's Satanism, it's like, oh, really? Like doing Satanism? I think at this point, it's not like the 40s when, you know, just it being Satanism alone was super scary. Now I think if you're doing Satanism now, after all these years, you kind of gotta, let's dig into that a little bit more. I think other than the use of the word Satanism, and I liked the nickname, the Downstairs Man or whatever he's called. Like, other than a few little words, they don't dig into Satanism, what that means, what's the philosophy, what's the goals of it. It's nothingy, and it doesn't really feel like Osgood Perkins is interested in Satanism or Satan or anything like that, or religion. It just doesn't, there's nothing deep here. There's no depth at all. But c'est la vie, on to the next one.
Yeah, nothing really to add to what you said, except I'll just reiterate, I didn't think the movie looked nearly as good as you're saying, but that's fine. And yeah, just what you're talking about with the marketing. Apparently, now I didn't know it was marketed as the scariest movie you'll ever see, but apparently, and this makes sense, apparently they tried to do the viral marketing in a modern reiteration of how Blair Witch Project was marketed. And we've talked about that the other day. We were saying that, isn't it crazy to be in a time where when Blair Witch is coming out and you are innocent enough and the time is innocent enough that you can believe that the footage is real. Now, I'm sure that the viral marketing of Longlegs wasn't that this movie is real and this footage is real, but I can imagine a buzz being created to just very select clips and reels on things like TikTok and Instagram, just where you get a few seconds, you get a little shot of what's his name, Nicolas Cage from the waist down or the shoulders down, and there would be a type of word of mouth buzz from this movie. Actually, I think what's that one that I need to return to one day? The one with the dark room and the dark footage. If anything, God, I wish I knew the name of it. The marketing can't be that good if I can't remember. I'm sure you'll remember it. It's the movie that I abandoned halfway through, and we'll get to someday when I come back to it and we'll finish the voice notes. But that movie, which I don't remember the name of, that movie really use marketing on reels and things like that to get word of mouth buzz. And I know you watch horror movies by yourself, but a lot of people watch horror movies as a type of communal thing. So I guess that's when you see these crazy things happen and these crazy torture scenes and these Nicolas Cage dressed in white chicks, older white chicks costume. If you're getting these clips and there's a buzz and you're sharing those reels with your friends and you're sharing these scenes, you can imagine how something like that really works well with marketing. Anyway, yeah, not much else to say on it.
Yeah, I might have to go back and check out what that marketing was, because they definitely did a great job marketing it. Like, it's much more people saw it than liked it. if that's any measure that you can go by, I think it really kind of took off, considering it's a real sort of low budget little movie. And I do think like the movie builds a lot of intrigue for me. Again, it was more successful for me than for you. So maybe you didn't get this, but like the opening scene with Nicolas Cage, the cuckoo and all that, like that, then we see he ducks down into frame. And I wish I didn't know it's Nicolas Cage, but it is announced in the opening credits. But you can see him, like when you can see him from the chin down, I think that's really scary. And I think the white chicks stuff is scary. And I think it's scary in white chicks as well. It's just not used. But like that is grotesque, like corrupting a human face and a human form is inherently creepy. And I think it's done well here. It's over the top, but again, this film ultimately is flimsy, doesn't really have anything going on. So I think go nuts, like put some cool visuals in. But that when he ducks down into frame and you get about one frame of his face, you don't get enough to kind of clock what his face is, but you get enough to go, something's wrong, something is not right there. And that's sort of the MO of the film for quite a long time. It's almost like a mystery show or something, where it's like, let's build intrigue. Let's get you leaning forward in your seat, trying to figure out what's going on. And unfortunately, like most mystery shows, what's going on is nothing, and they've actually got nothing up their sleeve. But because the film has that mode of like sparse details, suck you in, get you examining it, I can imagine a marketing campaign taking a similar tact and like having people want to know, who is this Longlegs guy, and just kind of like trying to, take its cue from the movie in that regard. So yeah, maybe I'll have a look at what they did. But yeah, and of course, Blair Witch is the daddy of it all. I think most well marketed movie in history, I'd say.
Just for the mystery being solved of the other movie that did a brilliant marketing campaign I couldn't think of earlier, it's Skinamarink.
Your mailbox is full. Please delete new or stored messages which you no longer need so that new messages may be received.